Hello, everybody. Brian here from quantlabs.net. Today's video is a comment that I'm responding to. I put out a video on my YouTube channel about 7 years ago, and this is the key: is that 7 years ago sounds quite old, which it kind of is. The title of the video was "Complete Overview of Practical C++ Programming for Quant Financial HFT." So this comment came in today of, "Sir, I'm just starting to learn C++ and DSA, which are data structure algorithms. Can you please guide me on what shall be my roadmap to crack HFT and finance firms?" Okay, so this is a more updated view. Just for the reward, there was a recruiter that somebody sent me of a job in New York, paying up to $2 million. Okay, so that was what they call the elite of all quant algorithmic developers. I've never seen it that high over the last 12 years. $2 million US. So a lot of people are very interested in those kind of positions, obviously, by getting them, depending upon your age, where you're at, your level of experience. There's three aspects when it comes to algorithmic trading, especially in these kind of firms, high frequency trading shops. One, you need to be a coder. Two, you need to be a math wizard. Three, you need to be a trader. And the way I think they look at experience is based on, number one, in trading, number two, on quant, math, and number three is coding. So if you want these elite of elite jobs, you have to be top notch in every aspect of those three criteria. So if you're coming out of school and you're a dropout, most firms don't really care, but generally quite a few job descriptions will say at least a master's and preferably a PhD. When it says preferably PhD, they mean they want a PhD. Unless you're some superstar developer coming out of Rentec, maybe an exception. So when you have the education as a PhD, we're not talking about some college down the street at state level or provincial wide. Okay, we're talking an Ivy League school. Now, I know there's a lot of people coming in from foreign lands in to the States and UK, because that's where these jobs primarily pay, are either UK or US. So preferably, from what I'm seeing, preference will always be given to a Western school. I don't make the rules. This just seems to be how it works. With the exception of, maybe, let's say, in India, there's one Ivy League mathematical school that's right up there as one of the world's best. So if you're coming out of India or that region, that's probably where you need to come out of. If you're in Europe, I think it's Etihad out of Zurich, Switzerland, is another level. The kind of schools I'm talking about are your Harvards, MIT, Stanford, those kind of schools, very high level schools. So if you have that coming out of a PhD with a math, preferably, I'll give you an example. Domyard, that's all started by MIT graduates. So they're one of the newer big firms, HFT shops. So I can imagine when they get new recruits, they're just going to go to MIT. And MIT is usually the school that most of these high level shops will, talk to. If you're, as I said, if you're coming from a lower grade school, good luck with you. I can be always wrong, but you'd have to show really good skills at other things. So MIT is probably the top of the top, the cream de la cream, to get attention from these kind of recruiters at these kind of firms. Um, so there's that. From the trading perspective, you have to show your trading skills. You have to show your passion for trading. You have to show probably a verifiable track record. So if you're not as strong on the education, there's a couple of ways to go about it. because I think they'll look at you equally weighted on the three criteria: the math, the tech or coding, and your general trading passion and results. So if you are a trader, but you still have these skills, probably a good option is to trade with an impeccable trading track record. And if you have built it around automated trading, the best way to get recognized is to get your track record verified with some kind of third party verification service. So you could throw that in there as part of your resume to these firms because now you're talking, I'm not just a coder, I'm not just a math wizard, I'm also a trader and a pretty good one. And especially if you're using Python, C++ skills with automation to get you there, that's going to be most likely an added bonus to get you noticed if you don't have the educational. That's what I'm going to assume because that's what they're looking for is how passionate you are about trading. Another thing they'll most likely be looking for is your contribution to open source projects. Or, in fact, they'll probably want to look at your GitHub repository. If you don't have a repository with really unique, sort of technical coding projects that they might be interested, if you're just contributing 10 lines to a project, that won't cut it. You have to show. So, for instance, if you have a GitHub repository and you built out a completely brand new trading platform, open source, that's pretty slick in Java, Python, C++, or some other modern language, that might get you attention as well. Be able to trade off that and to show a verifiable track record and a really good one to get the attention. Because again, now you're showing your enthusiasm towards this industry. Now, this is just, I hate to tell you, I am pulling this out of my rear end here. But this is what I'm thinking over the years that these kind of recruiters and firms will be looking for. Because everybody and their dog can do this stuff, but to be good at it and to show your passion with a verifiable track record in your GitHub repository that will get you noticed, these are two areas you need to be really good at. Like I shouldn't even say, but the best of the best. Um, and preferably, obviously, in the hot languages, Java, C++, and Python, because those are the hot languages that the call it legacy minded HFT shops. Because you got to remember, they're working off of code bases from decades old, and they're not going to convert over to something like JavaScript and completely do a rewrite. That ain't going to happen. If you don't like it, start your own firm. See how you do. Um, so that's the coding end. The math, that's probably where a lot of people will fail. If you're not strong on math, coming out of one of these Ivy League schools with a PhD, um, you may have issues holding you back. I'll give you an example. I had a friend through this business whose dad was very well known mathematician worldwide, and the person I got to know was the son of this well known mathematician out of Bulgaria. So he got qualified to do an interview on site at Rentec, Renaissance Technologies, Jim Simmons' firm. So he got qualified to do the interview. He did an all-day set of interviews, and he got crucified on the math and the coding. I'm telling you, he was very good at what he did, especially on the math front. So if you can imagine, and he also had compiler experience, building compilers at IBM of over 10 years of that experience in C++. Okay, he was passed over. So you think that he would be an ideal candidate, but the dad, a Bulgarian mathematician, and himself building compilers at IBM in C and C++, over 10 years experience, still can't get a job at Rentec. That's how cutthroat it is. Um, so what can you do? I will tell you from my experience that nobody really talks about. If you want to get into these high-end jobs, You have to basically, uh, obviously show initiative. That's why you need to have um, your GitHub and not just any standard plain vanilla coding project or contribution. It's probably most likely some sort of trading platform they'll look for, and that's built from scratch. Uh, there's that. They're also going to like really test you on algorithms, like doing it up in C++ plus plus or Java or even Python. Sometimes they'll just give you whatever language you want, but they want to see how fast you are to problem resolve and come up being able to showcase your skills on the math front, but coding that math into probably preferably either C or C++. plus plus. And as I said, this is a tough mission. If you want these big, high lucrative paying jobs, 500,000, three quarters of a million. And as I said, one rarely came up 2 million, but this is what it takes. Um, One secret that people may not know is if you're young, what a lot of these firms look for are people coming out of the physics field of study. Why? Because that's what physics do. They focus on a problem and being able to resolve the problem using math to um, basically code it up in C++ plus plus or C, as I said, as a solution. And when they go through that entire set of years in physics, their brain is pre-programmed to think that way. Because that's what HFT is, really. When you look at a mathematical problem for the data in the markets, um, you're looking for inefficiencies. So you got to be good at that. Like, I shouldn't say even use the word good. You have to be the best of the best at doing seeing inefficiencies in the market using raw data and seeing that problem and trying to figure out this is what the quants do is to be able to basically reverse engineer that, find a way to build an equation or formula around that, and then code it up. So the only people that have that kind of mindset are people coming out of the world of physics. If they know that you're coming out of a very prestigious school with a physics background at the PhD level, you probably have a much better chance of getting hired. That seems to be one of the unspoken rules over the years, especially if you're coming out of a really high end Ivy League school like an MIT. So that's what they kind of look for, even though they won't tell you. Now, when you look at job descriptions for these type of firms, they're very, very, very general at it. Meaning, they'll just say we want C++ plus plus, and they put in a couple of libraries in there, and that's it. But they won't be very specific on what they're looking for. They know what they're looking for, and if your resume, but they're not going to tell you. Recruiters may give hints, but they won't tell you what they're looking for in terms of the libraries. So be very mindful of that. And a lot of it will be open source. Some of it will be commercial. Um, some of it will be connections into the markets using direct market access (DMA) on the big exchanges out of Chicago, CBOE, um, or whatever in the futures options markets. So if you have access to that and know how to use those APIs, then that's great. Also, another area they're going to look for is people that know the fixed protocol, because on the libraries that are or APIs that most people know it as are issued or official from the CBOE and all that. Um, and that's going to usually use the fixed protocol. So if you have that as an extra bonus, awesome. Because now we're talking two different paths here. So if you're a fixed protocol expert or some other modern protocol, you can go down that path in these firms. But if you're looking for the really lucrative positions with a quant research, you have to follow along the path of the math and preferably from the world of physics. As I said, I'm just giving you my view of it over the years, what these firms look for. Um, and that's that. I mean, it's one thing to study the algorithm data sets and the different data structures and master that, but that's just a little slice of what's really needed. Um, so we've talked about the coding skills. You got to be very good at that, and all the different C++. You can't go in with just the basics or intermediary. You're probably going to be looking at building something, optimizing it, preferably like a trading platform or some kind of trading equivalent bot and C++ or preferably obviously C++. That's going to get the attention because a lot of these coding bases that the HFT firms use is C and C++. And in there, they're going to mix it up with the Python as well because between those two languages, they work really well together. So you want to focus on C and C++. There is quite a few jobs in Java, but if you look at the differences between Java and C++, I definitely think that C++ is where you want to go. Python's good for more intermediary tool set development, but the core algorithm development is going to be definitely in C++. The slicing and dicing of that, probably the other coding skills that's really important is really important is knowing how to optimize things like the uh, Linux shell or the Linux. I can't even remember. It's been that long. Uh, basically the if you go to linux.org, hang on there. Let me just see if I can find it. Uh, you want to know Linux inside out in terms of the core of the sorry, I have to figure that out. Um, yeah. Anyways, so if you go to linux.org, oh, the kernel. Yeah. So if you know the kernel really good in Linux, because what you have to understand about a lot of these HFT firms back in the day, and I'm sure some of them still do this, is they'll use the kernel, Linux kernel, and they'll rewrite it and they'll have their own uh, customized Linux, and they just customize the hardware servers as well to optimally get that as well. And we're talking about the high, ultra low level latency. So a lot of that has to do with the kernel as well. So if you know that, knowing how to transfer memory from one to the other, like using something like UDP, um, that's important to know how to really optimally use the Linux core, or sorry, the Linux kernel as well. Um, so I've been talking 17 minutes here about what's expected. What you have to understand is if you go on my YouTube channel, Quant Labs, and just type in the search on the channel search, London Quant, out of 12 years and probably thousands of people that come in and out of my contact, he's the one that I'm just speechless knowing this guy and what he has done and what he showcased, what is on the other side. But basically, he led his own hedge fund and did very well with it. But he was like a machine. He would code 24 hours nonstop for 5 days. And a lot of the coding was done in C sharp. That was his preferred choice. Um, but everything he coded was 100% rewritten ground up, not using any third dependencies. Because a lot of these HFT firms will not use a lot of third party frameworks, libraries, and the like, or API. It's all built from the ground up internally, and they do that to optimize the platforms that they use, and same on the research. So that's another thing they look for. They want to know that you're able to build up something 100% coded up that you've done where there's no third party dependency. So again, knowing that, and if we're talking, you're going to be working day and night, 7 days a week, living under your desk like what they used to do. You want to get paid, this is what you got to do. So there's a lot of sacrifice, and really what it comes down to is you have to have the aptitude for this and the drive. If you're just kind of going in half-assed, forget it. Just get a regular job. even at Goldman Sachs, it's tough to get in because they're going to put you through, I don't know how many interviews, at least 10 to maybe 20 over a day, full day on site of interviews, or another 2 days. And I was watching a video with, I can't remember his name, but it was an ex kind of recruiter, hiring manager, trader, and coder that was pretty good. Um, and at the end of the interview, they said, yeah, if you want to get into anything in the banks now, hedge fund, you got to know your Python. You got to know your Python really well. It's not just coming out of school, knowing how to master a spreadsheet in Excel or VBA. Forget it. You got to know Python. That's a standard now, like knowing English, math, and coding in Python. So that's important. That's just to get an entry level or some level in a bank. So if you don't have that, you're eventually going to get cut out. And the problem with these type of jobs and roles, unfortunately, a lot of them will be probably uh, taken out by the AI. And a lot of these firms use AI as well, or machine learning. So I couldn't imagine. We just talked about the technical, the math level, the drive, knowing physics, and then we haven't even talked about the machine learning yet. Machine learning, in my mind, is like a completely different beast. But I do think if you choose, let's say, Torch, maybe the TensorFlow, um, and knowing how to build these things from ground up again, uh, you probably can get a good chance of getting hired, building out these kind of projects using AI, and again, building out from the ground up. This area, I don't have a lot of experiences, but I wouldn't be surprised that a lot of these firms. I just heard that Citadel got a enterprise level license for ChatGPT. So they're using ChatGPT as a tool, as a as a tool on the side to help you do your job. Now, as these chat things, these generative AI chat things, be it Bard, be it um, ChatGPT, they're going to get much more advanced. So I do think um, they will eventually take over this type of role in the world of HFT development. The other thing, when it comes to just trading and modeling, one of the big things that nobody really talks about is self-adapting. So if you have an AI that is able to build using a lot of the machine learning tool sets out there, and maybe within the firms, I can't really say yes or no on this. You have like a Citadel maybe using a chat GPT. You may have other firms that have their own solution uh, equivalent to a chat GPT. I could imagine that a company that's firm that's already built up their own machine learning libraries and AI tools that they've built in house, that they're just going to throw it away and replace it with chat GPT. I don't see that happening. So it depends on the firm, but you got to be able to definitely showcase your capabilities of learning this stuff and being not just good at it, but the best of the best. Now, in terms as I was saying about where this could go and self-adapting, I think it's also important to understand that in the world of this stuff back, let's say 10 years ago, even 15 years ago, there's always the ideal to have some kind of trading model that will self-adapt to the markets. That's the ideal that they want. So the amount of data that's been out there for all the many years now, there's so much data that they can use for back testing or equivalent of back testing to work with, that they can build up some kind of trading model that will self-adapt with what it sees in the current state of what the market's doing and be able to adjust their trading capabilities, I guess. Because there's another big movement that a lot of people don't know about or may not heard of is the no code movement. And I'm sure a lot of these firms would love to implement that. So meaning if they have a huge research department, a huge coding department, I would not be surprised that they're moving towards this um, no coding kind of movement internally. and then using their AI own libraries or frameworks that they've built out, or leveraging off of ChatGPT. I can't say. So what I'm saying is, eventually, that a lot of these jobs that people want may wither away over the long run, and where you're really going to have to focus, I think, to be cut above the rest is, as I said, to be able to leverage a GitHub repository. I'll tell you what, a guy gave me a tip from the world of Goldman Sachs. These banks are now looking for not just people to hire, they're looking for brands. So if you put yourself out as a coder, um, and you kind of market yourself as a brand, and the way to do that is through obviously contributions on Medium and all that. But it doesn't stop there. Where the real focus from the coding perspective most likely will be on your GitHub or equivalent resume, and showing what projects you worked on, um, and basically what you've built on your own with no third party dependencies, and namely some kind of trading bot, trading automated trading strategy, or better yet, a trading platform. That's probably in the long run what will get you a lot of attention on top of what I already talked about from the educational point of view. Um, because I think this is going to be fewer jobs, um, as time passes, once this AI comes into full swing, because we already know that ChatGPT can bang out some pretty good high quality code. So, pursuing this may be one of those career paths that may eventually radically change with higher paying jobs, but much more fewer of them. So this is what I'm potentially thinking and where it's going. I can't really say. I'm not in on the inside, but if people know, the only way to know is by comments. Um, so I could be wrong on what I'm saying about the AI and the ChatGPT equivalent, but from the educational, I know for sure the physics will help you, the math will definitely help you, the Ivy League will help you. From the coding perspective, you have to showcase it on your GitHub as a brand, not just as a person, but what you're capable of doing. Now, if you find you're too lazy on it, just get a regular job. It's all about motivation and drive. That's pretty well all I can offer you. I wish I could offer more opinion, but this is the modern way of looking at it. I'm sure that's going to change in the next few years, and I may do another video on it, but that's what I'm seeing now. Anyways, we'll leave it at that. Thanks for watching. If you're into what I do, just go over to quantlabs.net/books. And if you're new, I got a bunch of videos and free PDF books on that as well if you sign up. Thanks for watching. Have yourselves a good day.